How many of you remember Fundamental Paper Education? You know, that weird cartoon based on that Living Tombstone Baldy song. Usually when that video popped up in my recommended, I didn't care about it. It didn't look like my kind of thing, but I never really stopped thinking about this character design, and one day I got curious enough to actually check it out, and now I'd say it's a staple of my channel. You know what's funny too? When me and my brother were in elementary school, we used to print out pictures of random characters and play with those instead of regular toys. There's some kind of prophecy out there, I'm telling you. However, this is one of my least favorite reviews I've ever made, and it mainly has to do with how and why I made it. I didn't think there was much competition for paper school video essays, and I also feel like I just said what I thought people would expect to hear from an FPE review, which is not how you should approach this type of video at all. And since FPE is most likely not getting some kind of successor anytime soon or ever, I figured the least I can do is give it a proper look. But before we start, we will only be judging this video. The only outside information I am going to include is character names, just so it's easier to refer to everyone. Part 1. Scene by scene analysis. In the title sequence, we see a door labeled Alice's room do not open, and it seems to be a little busted up with some scratches and chipped pieces. Just who is Alice? Is she hiding a monster? Is she the monster? Well, we don't have time for that because the cartoon is finally starting. We pop up in the school and are introduced to Zip and Oliver before Claire. I guess I'll talk about them for a bit. They sure look like some dubious little troublemakers. They're most likely friends. Oliver has an A+ on his hair, so maybe he has a big ego, or he's really smart, or he's a class favorite. Zip has an incorrect math equation on her hair for some reason. The learning is fun book. We got some doodles of Miss Circle and Zip. We got some more incorrect math. Riley gets a whole page. She could be important. Doodles of Oliver claiming that Alice is his girlfriend. Also, first person language. I guess this is Oliver's own notebook. He must be pretty dumb, especially for a high schooler. He doesn't look any younger than that. And finally, a doodle of Miss Circle demanding Oreos. If this really is Oliver's notebook, then so far we've gathered that he could be stupid, he likes to make fun of people, he could have some creative spark in his head, even though he's not very good at drawing, and he loves his friends so much, oh my god! Welcome to paper school. Wait, so is this like an official notebook or something? I don't know. This font is used on a different page, so maybe Oliver wrote this himself, unless this is not his notebook and this is just a filler section. Thankfully though, it's at least short, and in this space for a picture I'm assuming, we transition to the real start of the story, and are finally introduced to Claire. She's walking down the street going to school and looks nervous about something right before the camera shows us the paper school. Is Claire familiar with this place? Maybe she feels this pressure every time she goes to school since she'll die if she performs too poorly, but I think it's much more likely that she's a brand new student, which is already enough to make her feel anxious. We get some shots of the students doing their things, and then we're introduced to Miss Circle. Gotta say, after rewatching this time, I like this first shot where Miss Circle is revealed to be much taller than most people probably thought. Then she walks down the hall with a giant compass and starts Fortnite T-posing. Okay, I guess this design deceived me. Is that Riley right there? Now you see, this looks evil. This only looks kind of evil, but then why is she looking more normal on this page? Anyway, we're very briefly introduced to the other teachers and are finally introduced to Oliver for real. As you can see, he likes to partake in some 0.5 GPA activities with his friends Zip and Edward. Look, they're eating in class. Are they gonna pull some devious licks next? Claire, Angel, and Bubble are clearly not as amused, but they do not confront Oliver and his friends, either to save time for the video or they just went back to working. But screw those guys, we gotta show off Abby now. His timbers are shivering as Miss Circle approaches him, smashes a table, and now is when we learn that if you fail your tasks or whatever, the teachers kill you and cannibalize you. Also seems like Miss Circle doesn't want anyone to know that's what she does. I don't blame her, because when Lana comes to check it out, she's also murdered. We heart Alice. Who the fuck is we? Did you draw this yourself? Maybe you did. Your arms look really long, so I'm assuming you might be important. Did Oliver draw this? If so, then I said, who is we? Zip does pirate stuff even though she does not have a major focus in the next scene, which is just the teachers walking from the dead end of a hallway. Why is this here? Why are they here? Why is nothing? Okay, whatever. Do Miss Staffel and Bloomy know Miss Circle is okay then? I guess they're also cannibals. We got some pool shenanigans going on. Zip splashes some people. Is this magic water? Maybe maybe, maybe not. These characters and environments don't exactly act like they're made of paper. Angel says hi to someone. Where's Claire? Why isn't she here? I guess she doesn't like or know how to swim, so maybe she's a play it safe kind of person. Oliver eats soap in front of Bubble, who is of course concerned, but she looks like someone who's scared of most things, so Oliver just doesn't care about anything, does he? Edward pops out of the water and gets ambushed by a giant cardboard ship made by Zip, and hey, what's that kid doing? Get down from there, you're gonna get hurt! Unless these two somehow know each other, Oliver really has the worst friends, doesn't he? Alright, if this doesn't convince you that Claire's a new student, then nothing will. Look at how surprised she is at the library. There's Riley again. Why hasn't she done anything? If Claire has already been at this school for a while, I don't know what the hell she's doing. Going to the library for the first time here or having dementia or something. Then you also got Angel right next to her. I know he introduced her to the library. If Claire wasn't new, he would have assumed she's already been here. So they're studying, hanging out, looks like they're getting along well. Claire might even have a crush on him. Then a drone picks her up, controlled by none other than Edward. Alright, he finally gets to do something. He's definitely gotta be some kind of tinkerer. Here he is front and center as the drone does its thing and drops Claire down a giant hole in the library. Why is this here? I have some serious questions for whoever designed this building. The door for— get the fuck out of here, Zip. The door for Alice's room shows up again. Are we finally gonna know what's inside? Kind of. We get our first look at Alice. Get out of the way! She's gotta be a demon or something. Look at those hands. And again, Oliver talking about how he loves Alice so much. What the hell do you see in her, you weirdo? What do you think she sees in you? You seem like the kind of person to say ayo to literally everything. Anyway, Miss Circle warns everyone not to enter Alice's room, and here as she's walking around, everyone's scared of her. Has anyone ever attempted to stand up to Alice? I'm not sure, but that would justify everyone's fear of her even more. So in addition to how she looks completely different from everyone else, it's more clear than ever that she's important and might even be more dangerous than the teachers. We cut to the bottom of the library. This is still some weird ass architecture. Claire hits the bottom and lives, even though that looked like a pretty big fall. She's heading back up to get back to studying, but then Miss Bloomy spots her and Claire failed an assignment, so you know what that means. Claire probably didn't overhear Abby and Lana getting murdered. Must be a big school with some good soundproof walls. Either that or Claire isn't attentive enough, because now is when she learns what's going on in the paper school. She scampers all around, indirectly letting everyone else know what the teachers are doing, and wait, the teachers are just chasing Claire around regardless of if they're caught cannibalizing the students. So I guess they either don't care or everyone else already knows about this and they're just allowed to do what they do. That would explain why Abby looked so scared, but he also appeared kinda nervous beforehand, so maybe he's always like this. And then you got Lana. If this is a regular thing most of the school knows about, she should know not to investigate whatever Miss Circle was doing. Miss Sasha looked confused though, so she could also be new. Anyway, Claire gets cornered and doesn't die. I guess Angel overheard all that was happening and had the foresight because he managed to hold off Miss Circle's compass just in time. Claire discovers that the teachers also killed Abby and Lana, and then she sees a blue door in a dark hallway with ominous markings and scratches labeled exit. But all she cares about is that exit sign, and I'm sure she would have begged her parents to let her switch schools again. Speaking of which, they had to have at least heard rumors about the school, right? Have the police ever investigated? I don't know. But then the teachers are scared because we cut to Claire looking completely different inside of Alice's room, and it's just a black void inside. Alice starts chasing Claire around trying to kill her without any hesitation. Maybe that's why everyone's scared of her, just going off on someone with seemingly no motivation beyond disturbance or something. If we want to work with that though, maybe Alice doesn't like people. She doesn't trust them, she doesn't understand them, so her solution for that is to isolate herself as much as possible, even if it means killing someone so they can never revisit her. Could it be because Oliver doesn't leave her alone? Is she being hunted by someone? But then why would she reside in the paper school? What do they have to do with this? I don't know, but when Claire and Alice leave the room, the whole school transforms, but not the other characters, so clearly something big is being covered up. Claire is cornered and everyone arrives to see that she was killed by Alice. Not eaten though, what a bitch, can't even clean up after herself. And to end things off, the exit sign was an epic tactic of Oliver and Zip the whole time. These guys are absolute menaces, and why do they hate Claire so much? But then they get in trouble, and I can only assume the school is gonna make some major changes after this incident. Part 2. The rest of my thoughts. And I gotta start off with this goddamn title. Fundamental Paper Education. Already kind of a mouthful, but what does this mean? Let's see. Fundamental. I guess some of these characters should have had fundamental foresight. Am I right or am I right? Paper. Yeah, the school is made of paper until it's not. Education. They're in a school and they should have been more educated on the insanity of the teachers. Am I right or am I right? I think the title makes for a great acronym, but other than that, it's pretty bad. It sounds more like the name of a fake show that Exploshi would have come up with. Oh, look at that. It's very clear that Katie didn't really think the name through, and I don't think she ever explained it herself either. However, she did say she wanted to change it, so at least now she knows it was a mistake. There's a few visual hiccups I noticed. Oliver's foot is facing backwards here, and then he has a neck for a bit when no one else ever has one. For some reason, the walls and ceiling curve into each other here, and I don't know why. Katie was just starting to experiment with 3D animation here, wasn't she? And I think those are the stinkiest looking parts of FPE. Why is this whole sequence in the library done in a slightly different style? I think it's supposed to look a little cozier and friendlier, but I don't see any harm in having more consistency here. Now there's the character designs. Some of them are pretty good. I think the main characters are up to code, but I also feel like there's an excess use of Blackhorn's shirt with buttons, and I would have liked a little more variety in how they look, especially when you look at how mediocre Claire's design is. I can tell it's her, but I feel like she's half conforming with how she's dressed when she doesn't have any reason to be. I would excuse it if the paper school required specific uniforms, but the dress code seems pretty standard because there are many other characters dressed differently from Claire. I feel like this design isn't very descriptive of Claire as a person either. She looks very nice and smart. That's all I think of when I see her, and I think that's lame. But I guess her design fits, because as far as this animation goes, I don't think Claire has any distinct traits, behaviors, or interests that could be easily labeled as Claire-core. As for Oliver, now that's a character design. It's distinct enough to not just look like it came from a template, and it does a much better job of communicating who he is. He's an asshole, he's a cocky schemer, and he's an idiot. Why does he have a pencil for an arm, though? I think Miss Circle looks better, too. You could probably say she looks a little more generic compared to the other teachers, but I think she looks the most like a serial killer. Moving on, I don't really have any major complaints with the story, and I think that's just because it's not really trying to be a conventional narrative. I will say this though, I don't know if Katie has the resources to move away from this, but I think it would be too much trouble to have a series told solely through animation beams. It could be possible, but I think it would have to be very selective with its pacing, structure, story beats, and especially song choices. I don't think FPE has enough overlap with Baldi's Basics anymore to be considered a clone or even the same at all, but I know the Basics and Behavior song by itself was a major foundational piece in developing the story, and even then, the song is probably the least interesting thing about it. The song is about why school is so Kevin, and that commentary probably applies here too. Honestly, most of my story complaints aren't even really complaints at all, more so just unanswered questions about the story. Oliver and Alice never interact once in here, therefore their supposed relationship isn't even relevant. So why do you keep bringing this up, man? I do think Katie was planning to have a good number of questions answered in the full series though, and hey, you could say it's good at making you ask questions too, which brings me to what I think is FP's biggest accomplishment, and that's how it conveys information without any kind of formal explanation. There is some dialogue, some reading, but those don't count. Other than that, it relies entirely on visual communication. It's not even like you have to read into things that much. All the essentials are right in front of you. Claire goes to school, she gets bullied, the teachers try to kill her for her failing grades, she tries to escape but gets killed by a demon. The plot is about as thin as you can get. The teachers are psychopaths, Abby's a pussy, Lana is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I think it also includes enough character and mystery to keep you more invested, which is also well delivered through visuals. Most of my questions really feel more supplemental at this point, rather than being related to any major plot holes or inconsistencies. I guess the biggest flaw with the story would be that Claire is pretty boring, and given that she's the protagonist, that's really the only reason I want to see more of her, just to know who she is. Overall, FPE is pretty cool, with lots of room for improvement and expansion. It'd be awesome to see more of it. I'd even think that if only Katie's so-called main universe made a comeback, but thanks to some people, that probably never will happen. And that sucks, cause I don't want this to just be abandoned. I'll be the first to admit, I wish Katie had more resilience, but oh well, as long as she uploads something in the future, I think most people will be satisfied. Unless a few years go by and everyone starts saying, "Can we all admit FPE was never good?"